Some months pass quietly, and others kick up dust and leave everything rearranged. But November has a habit of shaking the table. From Lincoln's election to FDR's landslide, from contested ballots in Florida to Trump's populist breakthrough, this 1 month keeps turning the wheel of American history. So why does November do this to us, again and again? Well, today we're tracing the hinge moments and asking what they reveal about our past and the path ahead. A hinge moment isn't just a headline. It's when the door swings wide and the future walks right in. It's a break in the pattern. When something ends, something else begins, and we don't go back. In American history, these moments arrive in many forms. A vote, a bullet, a quiet decision that doesn't seem historic until the ripples start. But what they have in common is this. They tilt the country onto a new course. They change the rules, the players, or the stakes. And more often than not, they show up in November. And there's a reason for that. And it starts with a single sentence written into law in 1845. Congress declared that presidential electors would be chosen on the Tuesday next after the first Monday in November. And that same rhythm later became standard for congressional elections too. At the time, it made sense. Harvest was over and roads were still passable, but Sunday church wouldn't be disturbed, so there you go. But in choosing that Tuesday, they fixed something deeper into our national life. Every November we face a crossroads, and a verdict is rendered. Power transfers or resists, and the country adjusts to what it just became. It's not just the law, it's the season. November holds a kind of emotional charge. The leaves fall, the markets brace, the courts rule, and in households across the country we ask what happens next. So let's walk through 6 moments when the answer to that question changed everything. November 6th, 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected, and within weeks, southern states begin seceding. The Union fractures, and the fragile compromise over slavery collapses. The country moves from political deadlock to civil war. In November 16th, 1914, the Federal Reserve opens for business. The Fed had been authorized a year earlier, but it's in this quiet November moment that the doors actually open and ledgers begin, and the structure of American financial power changes for good. November 8th, 1932. Franklin Roosevelt defeats Herbert Hoover. The Great Depression is in full swing. FDR wins in a landslide. But more than that, he wins a mandate for something radically new, the New Deal. With that, it comes a reshaping of federal power, like jobs, Social Security, infrastructure, labor rights. It's not just an election, it's a rewrite. November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy is assassinated. Leadership transfers suddenly to Lyndon B. Johnson. Within 7 months, he signs the Civil Rights Act. By the next year, the U.S. escalates its war in Vietnam. 1 moment of violence and a new trajectory for civil rights and conflict begins. November 7th, 2000, the Bush-Gore election breaks down. For the first time in modern memory, election night ends with no clear winner. Florida becomes a battleground of ballots, court rulings, and legal theory. And when Bush v. Gore is decided in December, the presidency is resolved, but trust in the system doesn't fully recover. November 8th, 2016, Donald Trump wins the presidency. A populist wave overturns assumptions in both parties. Trade, immigration, alliances, all rewritten, and institutional norms stretched thin. So in a single night, something breaks open and the system hasn't settled since. Quick note, if you find this kind of civic storytelling valuable, grounded in history, reflective, and not behind a paywall, I'd love to invite you to visit dancoyle.com. You'll find podcasts, essays, videos, and way more stuff. And each one is offered as a gift. And if you'd like to support that work, there are a few ways to do that as well on the site. That's dancoyle.com. The link is here on screen and in the description. Now let's step back. Why does this pattern keep repeating? Well, historians Strauss and Howe call it the fourth turning, a crisis era that happens every 80 to 100 years. Each one ends with a reckoning. Institutions lose credibility, factions harden, and new orders rise. The Civil War, the Great Depression, and World War II, the upheavals of the 1960s and 70s. In each of these eras, November becomes the pressure point, not just for policy shifts, but for legitimacy itself. Because in a fourth turning, elections aren't just procedural, they're existential. They ask who gets to lead, whose rules count, what is the nation becoming? And every November, those questions hit the calendar right on time. So what about this November? We're deep into another fourth turning, and again the door is swinging. Here's what's ahead in November 2025. In Virginia, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, all 100 seats in the House of Delegates. Spanberger and Earl Sears headline what's shaping up to be a hard-fought race. Election day, November 4th. New Jersey, another high-profile governor's race. Mickey Sherrill faces Jack Citarelli in a contest with national implications for suburban strategy and party strength. The Supreme Court, its November sitting begins on the 3rd, and one major case on the docket lists the president by name as a party. How the court rules could reshape executive power going into 2026. The economy. On November 19th, we'll get minutes from the Fed's October policy meeting. And on the 26th, the Beige Book lands. That's a report that often signals where interest rates and job markets and inflation are headed. And globally, the U.S. heads to Brazil for COP30, a major climate summit, and the conference itself runs from November 10th through 21st, with a leaders summit kicking off on November 6th through 7th. Each of these things, on its own, might pass relatively quietly, but together, they form a hinge. And we'll only know what swung open once we've already walked through it. So here's the question I want to leave you with. What do you do in a month built for turning? Well, here's what I try to do. Pay attention to 3 things. 1, mandate. Not just who wins, but whether they've earned enough trust to act. 2, legitimacy. Do people accept the results, or are the rules themselves breaking down? And 3, rule rewrites. What powers are being claimed, and by whom? These aren't just political questions. They're civic ones. And in November, they belong to all of us. Because we don't just live through history, we shape it. And the hinge doesn't swing by itself. It swings with us. All right, folks, thanks for walking through this with me. I will see you in the next one. Good luck in November.